New exclusive videos are waiting for you on Boosty. You can support me and follow the link to subscribe to Boosty. Enjoy watching. Description: a girl from our world ends up in the body of little Sasuke, who died that night when the Uchiha clan was destroyed. And now she has to get used to not only a new world, but also a new gender. This alone would be enough to go crazy, but there is also Orochimaru, who has plans for her, and memories from a past life, according to which the Fourth World War will begin in 10 years. Therefore, you can't relax, and the principle, if you want to live, you have to be able to spin, works in both worlds. Part 1. What a strange dream, was the first thought that came to my mind. Everything around was black, red and white, although my dreams are usually bright and colorful. A straight dark street stretched into the distance. The sky above was also gray and starless, but the moon seemed to have decided to compensate for this deficiency, and was 5 times larger than it should have been. Somewhere ahead, some strange sounds were heard, and I decided to check what was going on there. In front of the largest house stood a small boy of about 6 years old, as if cut out of a black and white film. At first, it even seemed to me that it was a statue, but then I noticed that he was crying, staring at something. I walked around him from behind and finally saw what had so reliably riveted his attention. The main doors were wide open, and inside the large room, 2 bodies were lying on the floor. Scarlet blood, so bright that it seemed to glow in this dull black and gray world, spread across the floor, flooding everything around. And suddenly the picture changed. Now 2 people it turned out to be a man and a woman were standing facing the door, and someone's dark silhouette appeared behind their backs. The flash of steel, a quick swing, and the blood again splashes in all directions, the bodies fall, and the scarlet liquid again floods the floor. The cycle repeated itself over and over, and if at first the sight shocked me, now it was already boring. After all, you can see scarier scenes in movies. Hey, what's going on here? But the crying boy did not react to my voice. I stretched out my hand to shake him, and only then realized that I did not have a hand. Instead, there was something incomprehensible and glowing with a golden light. In addition, it was also drawn inward, like a pseudopod, or rather, a pseudo-arm. Having quickly checked for the presence of the other limbs, I made sure that instead of them there were also some kind of tentacles. Having felt myself, I made sure that the other organs were also gone, and I was just a ball that could somehow see and talk. However, this discovery did not even excite me. Once I even dreamed that I was a hidden camera watching the showdown of the Mafia. So such an unusual form did not seem like anything special. The dream was becoming more and more boring. Nothing new was happening at all. Even the boy's tears dripped at regular intervals, rhythmically falling to the ground. Can you see me? I waved my false hand in front of the child's face, hoping to attract his attention. He did not react. Then I patted him on the shoulder. Do you see me? Do you see me? Earth calling. A quiet crunch answered me. Crackle, crackle, crackle. The shoulder crumbled inward, and the arm fell off and fell to the ground, breaking into several pieces. Cracks began to spread across my body, as if the boy were a fragile porcelain doll. A few seconds later, he crumbled completely and turned into a pile of gray shards. And then the world around me began to collapse. 5 minutes later, I was standing in the middle of a gray desert covered in ash. There was nothing there except for an abnormally large moon and the shards left of the boy. I waited for some time for further developments, but nothing happened. Somehow, I didn't like this dream at all. I tried to wake up, but nothing worked. Even pinching myself, having no fingers, was extremely problematic. Out of boredom, I began to examine the shards that had rolled slightly to the side. My hand looked like a glove. I grabbed it with my false hands, twisted it in all directions for a while, and then decided to try it on. The glove fit perfectly. I moved my little baby fingers with some surprise and was finally able to pinch myself. I still couldn't wake up. But now I had something to do, something akin to putting together a 3-dimensional puzzle. I don't know how many hours I spent fiddling with this puzzle. At least the pieces that were put together correctly stuck together, although the cracks were still visible. I started putting it together with my arms. I had to tinker with the back. It's a good thing it only fell apart into 3 pieces. All the pieces were different in size and shape, and only the eyes were exactly the same. I had to put the head back together completely by touch. Fortunately, apart from the eyes, only one more small piece broke off, an oval one, in the center of the forehead, as if there should be room for a third eye there. Everything else was large enough to put the pieces together correctly, even without seeing them. But as soon as the last piece fell into place, it was like boiling water had doused me. Instantly, such a jumble of feelings fell upon me that I could hardly make sense of them. Horror so wild that I couldn't lift a finger, hatred so black that I wanted to destroy everything around me, and melancholy, hopeless, so hopeless that all that was left was to howl from grief. It seems that I screamed, or maybe, silently opening my mouth, writhed in convulsions when suddenly someone else's memory fell upon me. 7 years of someone else's life from birth to today. All the sensations and feelings, compressed into one short moment, made my consciousness cloud and fade. Part 2. When I came to, I still had time to be glad that this boring nightmare was finally over, and then I opened my eyes. It turned out that I was lying in an unfamiliar room, surrounded by screens on all sides. A slight hospital smell meant that I was most likely in some kind of hospital. I tried to sit up, and then I saw my hands. More precisely, not my own, but those small palms that had previously belonged to that porcelain boy. Everything inside me went cold and twisted into a knot from fear. And the most terrible thing was that what was around me was definitely not a dream, because there was no other way to explain how I knew the names of almost all the Uchiha, now dead, and even how disgusting the taste of natto was. Following the horror came a wave of melancholy. After all, I was left completely alone, and then I was covered with hatred. I must kill Itachi. I groaned and clutched my head in my hands, curling up into a fetal position and trying to detach myself from these alien negative emotions. For a while, I even started thinking of myself in the male gender and was truly scared that I could turn into a little boy, obsessed with hatred, not only externally but also internally. Enough! Enough! I screamed out loud, and suddenly all my senses were cut off. Even my sense of touch and smell disappeared. At least my sight and hearing remained. I hesitantly took my hands away from my face, expecting the attack to resume, but my emotions were in no hurry to return. Then I heard someone's approaching footsteps, the screen swung open, and next to my bed there was a man in a white coat, glasses, and a strange cap that left only his face open. Perhaps if the situation were a little different, I would have been amused by such an absurd outfit, but my sense of humor probably switched off along with everything else. "How are you feeling, Sasuke-kun?" At first I wanted to ask how, in his opinion, a child who had recently seen his parents killed should feel, but I decided to limit myself to a neutral, normal. How long was I unconscious? Addressing myself in the masculine gender slid off my tongue completely habitually. 2 weeks. A powerful genjutsu was cast on you, and it could not be removed from the outside. Here I thought that such news should have upset me, but since my emotions were as if frozen, I felt nothing and decided to simulate at least some semblance of feelings, just in case, squeezing the edge of the blanket. "Has the funeral already happened?" I lowered my voice and lowered my face. "Yes, you understand, we couldn't wait longer than a few days." A tense silence hung in the ward. I just didn't know what else to say, and the doctor seemed to have the same problem. "Sasuke-kun, I think you need to replenish your strength. They will bring you a special lunch now, which will help you recover." The doctor finally found his voice. It seemed that he expected objections, and my words almost surprised him. "Good. I do not feel hungry, but I will do as you say." The doctor nodded and left. I remembered the local tradition among shinobi to escape from the hospital without waiting for discharge. But in my situation, it would be stupid to return to an empty block, and even on an empty stomach. I hoped they at least washed away the blood there, and not just removed the bodies. After lunch, during which I was glad that I did not feel the taste, I found my clothes in the nightstand next to the bed and changed. It was the middle of the day, and the hospital was quite crowded. I could easily be noticed during the escape, and I did not dare to jump out of the second-floor window, although Sasuke's memory told me that nothing would happen to me. But it was not for nothing that I am now a ninja, albeit a beginner. Having made the seals, I used henge, which the genius Sasuke had already mastered. At first, It seemed to me that nothing would work, but the body that I inherited remembered perfectly well what to do. The distinctive shirt with a wide collar and the Uchiha clan symbol on the back turned into an ordinary t-shirt, and the hairstyle with a tuft of hair sticking out at the back of my head became a short haircut. No one paid attention to the boy at the hospital, and I escaped without any obstacles. The road to the Uchiha quarter also passed without incident. Having slipped under the yellow tape with the inscription, "Do not enter," I was able to assess the scale of the destruction. Considering that the houses here were built of wood and paper, it was surprising that they were not razed to the ground at all. In front of me was the very street from my supposed dream, and at its end was the mansion of the clan leader, which now belonged to me. Despite the switched-off emotions, it was still creepy here. I constantly felt like I was being watched, and perhaps it wasn't just a sudden paranoia. But it wasn't clear whether it was the ghosts of the dead watching me or the living people. I almost ran to the mansion, involuntarily noticing almost erased chalk tracks here and there. It looked like it had rained recently, and the blood was completely washed away, but some of the chalk that marked the position of the bodies remained. I stopped in front of the doors behind which my parents were killed over and over again in my dream, not daring to reach out and open them. Somewhere deep inside, I felt fear, even through the emotional numbness. Finally, having made up my mind, I jerked the doors open. No one had thought to wash away the blood inside the house. It was good that there wasn't as much of it as in the illusion cast by Itachi. The chalk silhouettes on the floor finished me off completely. "Mom! Dad!" My legs weakened, and I almost fell, but I managed to grab the door handle and stay standing. "These aren't your parents!" I managed to cope with Sasuke's memories and detach myself from them again. I straightened up and closed the door. The feeling of someone else's gaze finally disappeared. I walked around the bloody stains on the floor in a wide arc and moved inside the house. Only now did I realize how tired I was. My legs and arms were shaking. After all, such a long walk and mental shock were too much of a test for a 7-year-old child, especially after a 2-week coma. Deep down, there was a stupid hope that if I went up to my room and went to bed, everything would be fine again tomorrow morning. I don't even know who of us, me or Sasuke, was trying to deceive ourselves. But sleep was definitely the best thing we could do now, so I literally collapsed into bed without undressing and passed out. Part 3. In the morning I woke up in warmth and comfort, stretched and felt very hungry. Mom had probably already made breakfast. The thought made me feel cold. Sasuke's mother was dead, and her blood had soaked the floor below and mine. Perhaps she was very close, beyond that thin but almost insurmountable line that separates parallel worlds. Or perhaps she was in another galaxy altogether. I strained my memory, trying to remember what the constellations looked like in this world, but the only ones I could recognize, the Milky Way and the Big Dipper, were not here. And something persistently tells me that I will not return back. And this means that I am in deep trouble. Not even that. I am in trouble. And if my emotions weren't frozen, I would have thrown a tantrum right now, no worse than Sasuke. But instead I indulged in philosophical reflections on the topic. Did Kishimoto create Masashi Naruto world, or is he just some kind of prophet, but thinks that he invented an ordinary manga? Having finally woken up, I discovered that my sense of touch, smell, and taste had returned to me overnight. And at the same time I realized that I was completely filled with hospital smells, and it wouldn't hurt to brush my teeth. In the bathroom, another problem was added to the pile of my problems. I am a boy now, but so small. Having undressed, I looked at myself in the mirror. A cute face with cheeks that you just want to squeeze, a touching crest on the back of my head, big eyes with a dark iris that merges in color with the pupil. I made a house of eyebrows, pouted my lips, and understood why Itachi was almost flattened with love for me. Sasuke did not understand why Nai-san sometimes had such an expression on his face, but everything was clear to me. I wouldn't be surprised if Itachi keeps a photo of me under his pillow. I'm the spitting image of a porcelain angel now. Uchiha darling, she couldn't help but stroke her head. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. Is it some kind of maternal instinct that's kicking in? The other emotions aren't felt, but something like affection and a desire to protect is breaking through. Lightly patting Sasuke on the cheeks, she continued her examination. I hope this thing grows some more, otherwise I'll start to feel inferior, even though she's a girl. Or is this a normal size for a 7-year-old? I remember when I was very little, my mother bathed me and my younger brother together, but then I didn't even think about boys being different from girls, so I can't say anything for sure. After taking a shower and brushing my teeth, I realized that I was seriously hungry. There must be something edible in the kitchen, although most of it had probably gone bad. Unfortunately, it turned out that everything in the refrigerator had gone sour. I had to spend a few minutes cleaning it up. Finally, having finished that, I ran out into the fresh air, leaving the windows and doors open to air out the nasty smell. It was good that there was a garden and vegetable garden behind the house, where my beloved tomatoes grew. I loved them in my past life, and Sasuke had tender feelings for them. My hands seemed to pick the right fruit, warm from the sun, on their own, wiped it on my shirt and put it in my mouth. On the second piece, I realized that I should wash the tomato, but then gave up. It was time to start getting used to the image of a little boy. But my conscience would not allow me to eat all the other tomatoes unwashed. Having finished breakfast, I returned to the room and sat down at the table, putting a piece of paper in front of me. I needed to make a plan for how to live on. I am an adult with a higher education and knowledge of 2.5 languages. No, more precisely, 3 already. I now know Japanese not only from subtitles and a phrasebook. Of course, in my past life I did not spread the word that I watched anime. Only my relatives and a few friends knew about this hobby of mine. I did not go crazy about the heroes, did not cosplay characters, did not even collect figurines or other paraphernalia. But I more or less remember the main events of the Naruto world. It's good that I was not thrown into Bleach there. I never got through more than 2 episodes, although I know the main characters from fan fiction. If I were trusted to choose a world to get into, then I probably would have asked to go to J.K. Rowling's books. After all, everything there is almost familiar. But what is. I stroked Sasuke on the head and sighed. Don't worry, I will still raise a normal person out of you. I mentally addressed the boy, but received no response. In general, I have a bad suspicion that Sasuke himself as such no longer exists. He crumbled into pieces too demonstratively. Besides, I don't even feel a glimmer of his thoughts in my head, only memories. Maybe he'll wake up when he recovers from the shock, but I think there's nothing to wake up for. But since I inherited his body, I'll play my role well. Anime Sasuke wanted to kill his brother and restore the clan. There is no point in killing Itachi, and the thought of having to churn out a lot of little Uchihas creates cognitive dissonance. I hope that when this body grows up, the plan with reproduction will no longer seem so impossible to me. Otherwise, it will be awkward if, because of me, Sasuke suddenly becomes gay. On the other hand, I myself will have to change my orientation. Okay, that is still a long way off, but then we'll figure it out somehow. First, I need to make a minimum plan for the next few days. First, I need money. There is probably some somewhere in the house, but whether I will be able to find it is another question. I also need to visit the bank. After all, the clan was quite rich, and I am the only heir, so there are probably some accounts. Secondly, something needs to be done with the block. If I leave it as is, it will soon be overgrown with weeds and fall into disrepair. I'll need to rent out the houses, which is, again, extra money, which, as we know, is never too much. In addition, I need someone to look after the main mansion and cook for me. Actually, I can do it myself, but I'm only a meter tall now, and it's hard to even reach the stove. The maximum plan. I'll think about it tomorrow. First, I need to sort out my pressing problems. I quickly got dressed and went to the bank. Fortunately, Sasuke knew where it was. Whispers and strangers' glances accompanied me the whole way. Even the clerks at the bank looked at me with unhealthy interest. The man who was unlucky enough to serve me clearly felt insecure under the motionless, indifferent gaze of dark eyes on a childish face. In fact, I was simply tired of feigning any kind of emotion, and apparently it had an overwhelming effect on those around me. Uchiha-san, it seemed that such a polite address to a child was not easy for the clerk. I'm afraid I have bad news for you. Your father transferred all the funds to another bank a week before those sad events, so we have no information about them. Well, thank you, Daddy, you did me a favor. He was probably going to spend it on his damn revolution. And take it with him to the grave. And then it dawned on me. In this world, death is far from final, and with the help of Edo Tensei we'll probably be able to find out where Fugakudano put all on Y money. I just need to preserve his DNA. Fortunately, the pool of blood is still on the floor, but your personal account remained intact. He handed me a piece of paper and showed me where the amount was written. Sasuke was not very knowledgeable about prices, but even with his meager knowledge I managed to figure out that this money would be enough for about 5 years of a rather modest existence. The account was opened at my birth and has not been replenished since then. Oto-san, the bill for you is growing. You might as well think about my future. But there is good news. Since Uchiha Itachi was officially declared a missing nin, his funds were confiscated and transferred to you. The news sheet showed a sum 10 times larger. Moreover, the bulk of the money was transferred quite recently, literally a couple of days before the destruction of the clan. Itachi and I-san, when I meet you, I will kiss you. You will, of course, be shocked, but I love you no less than the old Sasuke. With the same indifferent look, he folded the papers and put them in his pocket, then withdrew some money for pocket money. In addition, the clerk told me how to rent out empty houses. They even provided me with a special real estate consultant who told me everything in detail, chewing it over like he was chewing on a child. However, that was exactly the kind of person he saw in front of him. In the end, we signed a contract according to which he took on all organizational issues. And his services were not that expensive. Already getting ready to leave, I asked if he knew where I could hire a housekeeper. The man suggested his cousin and said that she would come to the main mansion that evening and help with dinner. All the business at the bank was settled in less than an hour, which made me incredibly happy. But as soon as I went outside, people started staring at me again and whispering behind my back. It was unpleasant. Perhaps, if my feelings weren't frozen, I would have been angry. But now I simply applied henge and hid the most noticeable features of my appearance. I had unexpectedly a lot of free time, so I spent part of it on lunch at a nearby restaurant, during which it occurred to me that I should visit the cemetery. It would have been too suspicious if Sasuke hadn't visited his parents. Half an hour later, I was already there and laid white lilies on the tombstones. The Konoha cemetery was impressive, mainly because of its length. Shinobi die very often, and living to 30 is already a feat. Now the desire to become a ninja, which was already very weak, dictated only by Sasuke's memories, has completely disappeared. But I simply have no choice. With this damned Sharingan that I inherited, I'm simply doomed to become a shinobi. Otherwise, Orochimaru will soon come and take my body for himself. It's not like I've managed to get attached to it, but I simply don't have another one. I felt hopelessness even through the emotional blockade. Kill people? Fight to the death? Train until I lose consciousness? I don't want to. My legs weakened, and I fell to my knees in front of my parents' tombstones and curled up into a ball. Only this time the emotions were only mine. Sasuke wouldn't have understood what the problem was for him. It was all completely natural. Sasuke-kun? A voice suddenly rang out above my head. I turned around and saw Kakashi, who in a few years would have to become the sensei of the 7th team. He seemed to think that I was crying, and was a little surprised to see a completely emotionless face and dry eyes. Are you okay, Sasuke-kun? And he made his signature smile with his eye. However, what else could he smile with, since the rest of his face was hidden under the bandage and the protector? For some reason, this was the last straw. My world had recently collapsed, and Sasuke's too, so why would anyone dare smile? You know, this is all, by and large, because of you. I suddenly wanted to wipe that stupid smile off his face. The Kyuubi got out of control, the 4th Hokage died, and my family was partially destroyed because of you. Kakashi's face instantly became extremely serious. What are you talking about? About nothing, I had already come to my senses. The only thing I needed was to lose my precognition, just because of words spoken out of anger. I'm just in a bad mood, so I decided to ruin it for you. Seeing the surprised expression on the face under the mask, I felt something like relief. As the saying goes, I did something nasty, but my heart is happy. Goodbye, Kakashi-san. The rest of the day passed rather dully. I scraped some blood off the floor and sealed it in one of the empty bottles found in the first aid kit. After that, I managed to switch off my emotions again, and even the lamentations of my new housekeeper Mito-san about the poor, unfortunate boy did not get on my nerves at all. The next day I had to go to the academy. Sasuke had already missed 2 weeks, he would have to make up for it. Theoretical subjects, like mathematics, were surprisingly difficult for 7-year-olds. I had studied this in the 4th grade. Sasuke was better than anyone in the class at sensing and controlling his chakra, but I was having problems with taijutsu. At least there were no sparring sessions today, but throwing weapons were clearly not working for me. Less than half of them hit the target. After 2 weeks of immobility, my body didn't obey as perfectly as before. Or was it just that my hands were growing in the wrong place? At least none of my classmates laughed. Everyone was in deep shock from such a terrible performance by my standards. Sasuke-kun, you must not have recovered from your illness yet. Iruka-sensei tried to smooth things over. You can't strain yourself yet. I shrugged indifferently. After classes, I returned to the empty training ground and threw these kunai and shuriken until the entire supply ran out. The results had noticeably improved, now only a quarter missed. They are training us to be assassins and spies, and cheerfully, and with a song. All these noisy kids will soon be sent to kill people, claiming that such is the will of fire. I stared with painful attention at the last kunai left in my hands, vividly imagining how it pierces someone's body, cuts skin and muscle, breaks bones. And I felt nothing. It seems that this time I overdid it, and turned off my emotions too well. My hand automatically threw the kunai, and it pierced the center of the target. My shoulders slumped. I simply have no choice. I will have to become a shinobi. Pacifists are not popular in this world. Itachi, for example, is a pacifist, but he was forced to wipe out his own clan and become one of the most wanted criminals in the world. I will have to train every day, although I have no idea how I will manage it. In my past life, I could not even force myself to go for a run, so now I simply cannot imagine how to force myself to exercise. My laziness is not an emotion, but rather an innate state of mind, and it is not easy to get rid of it. It already seems to me that it can outweigh even the fear of death. It was already evening when I finally collected all the scattered weapons. Walking past the empty academy, I heard the creaking of a swing and turned in that direction, guessing who might be there. Naruto. The boy, immersed in his sad thoughts, shuddered and turned to me. What do you want, Sasuke idiot? Naruto, because of his unruly, eternally sticking out hair, looked like a dandelion. Or a chicken. Suddenly, I felt something like tenderness, although a minute ago it seemed to me that all feelings were reliably blocked. It was similar to the moment when I looked at Sasuke's face in the mirror. Could it really be a maternal instinct? It was hard for me to imagine how the inhabitants of Konoha managed to hate this little kawaii boy. Naruto almost fell off the swing in surprise. For calling you a weakling and a loser, I explained. Unfortunately, Sasuke really did that. I'm sorry, I was wrong. In fact, you are very strong. Peace? I extended my hand to him, and Naruto looked at me incredulously for almost a minute, expecting a trick, but then he shook it. When no trick happened, Uzumaki's face broke into a wide smile. Ha! You finally realized how cool I am. Yes. One day, you will become the most famous shinobi in the world, I confirmed. Huh! Naruto stared at me again, not believing his ears. He definitely expected me to start furiously denying his words. You really are strong. I sat down on the neighboring swing and began to gently swing, looking straight ahead. Despite how everyone treats you, you can still smile. What's so difficult about that? Naruto grinned happily once again in confirmation. I turned to him and diligently stretched my lips into a smile. My face was like rubber, because I hadn't used my facial muscles for more than 2 weeks. As you can see, I've forgotten how to do it. I even had to rub my cheeks with my hands to get rid of the feeling of foreignness. Ugh, that was creepy! Naruto exclaimed. Do you want me to train you? I do. Ha! Then get ready. Soon you will smile wider than anyone in Konoha. I looked at him doubtfully. In theory, this remark should have made me laugh, but I only felt an unfading affection. We swung for a while in silence, broken only by the creaking of the swing. At this time, I feverishly thought about what to do next. The desire to talk to Naruto was completely spontaneous, but I simply couldn't leave after the conversation and leave him here alone. The decision was obvious, and to hell with canon. My conscience hasn't atrophied and will definitely bite me if I leave everything as is. Naruto, are you coming to visit me? What? It seems that Uzumaki still hasn't gotten tired of being surprised. Tonight we'll have tuna onigiri for dinner, and tricolor dango for dessert. But you know, a lot of people were killed in my neighborhood. Aren't you afraid of ghosts? I'm not afraid of anything. Naruto even jumped off the swing. Lead the way. You're so easy to dare. I also got up from the swing. What did you say, Baka? He said that you're easy to control. You're the same. And I do what I want, and he stuck his tongue out at me. Pff. I think I began to understand why Sasuke from the anime loved this short word so much. The road to the Uchiha quarter took about 20 minutes. Finding himself on a gloomy, dark street, where not a single lamp was working, Naruto shuddered and began to look around restlessly, apparently looking for ghosts. After Konoha, which was quite lively at this time, the empty clan quarter was truly creepy. And only in the main mansion was the light on. Young master, you are late today. I have already started preparing dinner. Then Mido-san, who came out to meet me, noticed Naruto, and her face distorted into a grimace of disgust. This is Naruto, I interrupted her sharply. My friend came to visit me. I hope you understand this, Mido-san? The woman's face changed expression again. After all, she received a decent amount for her work with me, and she did not want to lose her job at all. As you say, young master. Let's go. Why are you standing there? I grabbed Naruto, who was frozen uncertainly at the threshold, by the hand and pulled him inside. Let's go, I'll show you my room. Yeah, he muttered. The boy looked dumbfoundedly happy, he even blushed a little. Only now did I realize that it was just because of one single word. After all, I called him a friend. Lord, how little a child needs to be happy. Who knows from the enemy shinobi that a Jinchuriki can be lured from Konoha not even with candy, but just a kind word. Naruto will now turn himself inside out to prove that he is worthy of the title of friend. What am I doing? Without wanting to, I will tame him like a kitten, and the whole cannon will crumble like a house of cards. Although, to hell with a cannon where a small child is abandoned to his fate, and even hated. If the butterfly effect really exists, then the future will change even if I just sneeze at the wrong time. So I won't even worry about it. Time will tell whether I'm right or not. Well, or Kishimoto Musashi, if he really did invent this world. So, it's decided, I'm taking Naruto with me. No one will definitely let me adopt him, but I hope at least they won't stop him from moving here. It's unlikely that Danzo and company will consider me a serious threat to the village's security, so there shouldn't be any problems from the Konoha leadership. And convincing Naruto would be a piece of cake. Wow, you have so many books. Have you really read them all? Naruto managed to look around my room and even touched the most interesting items: a raven statue on the table, a plush dragon, and an unusually shaped kunai. No, and before Uzumaki could happily exclaim that he knew it, I added, I've read 20 times more. That's a whole library. And you thought it was easy to be a genius? Rummaging through the closet, I found new pajamas. Here you go. What are these for? Naruto asked suspiciously. Well, you're going to spend the night at my place. Or are you sleeping naked? Actually, I remembered perfectly well that he slept in pajamas and also in such a cool cap, so, not letting him answer, I continued, we'll have just enough time to take a shower before dinner. I only washed myself the day before yesterday. But I have to every day. With these words, I shoved a towel into his hands and pushed him towards the bathroom. Can you handle it yourself? Or help? I can do it myself. Naruto slammed the door in my face. 15 minutes later, we were already sitting at the dinner table. Luckily, Mido-san's dislike for Naruto did not affect her culinary talents. Naruto ate his dinner so much that his ears were ringing. And it's not surprising, he had never eaten home-cooked food, so ordinary onigiri probably seemed like food for the gods to him. His whole face was now covered in rice. This sight only increased the degree of affection in me. Eat more carefully, I handed him a napkin. Naruto realized that he had behaved rudely, and stealthily glancing at me, quickly wiped himself. Come, I'll show you something. Grabbing a plate of dango, I led him to the back door that opened onto the garden. It was already completely dark outside. Large, unusually bright stars were pouring out in the sky. Cicadas were chirping somewhere in the distance. The moon was really bigger than on Earth. If you believe the manga, then in fact it is the sealed body of the ten-tailed demon. After all, I found myself in a strange world. Special beetles lived in the garden, glowing at night in different colors. Fireflies only appeared in the spring, and these insects, specially ordered from the Aburame clan, lived here for a whole year. So now multicolored lights fluttered all over the garden. Sasuke often sat here before going to bed, and now I was able to see this picture with my own eyes, and not just know about it from memories. Beautiful, huh? Yeah, even the restless Naruto fell silent, enchanted by the sight. Or maybe he was just tired after the day. He settled down to sleep in my room, flatly refusing to lie down in the next one. However, I did not insist. I myself was a little scared to be alone in a huge empty house, where 2 people had recently been killed. Yesterday I came and passed out, and today I would not be able to fall asleep for a long time. And so we brought a futon from the next room and chatted for almost an hour. More precisely, Uzumaki chatted, and I sometimes inserted only, "Really?" or "Wow." Part 4. In the morning, at breakfast, Naruto was quiet and thoughtful, which is not typical for him at all. Listen, Naruto. Do you want to move in with me? It's not comfortable to live all alone in such a big house. Really, we can? The child immediately beamed. Of course. We'll take your things after the academy, and that's it. You'll live here, you can choose any room you want. Hooray! Uzumaki jumped up from the table and performed something like a Papuan dance. And I was just surprised to myself how it was possible to leave such a naive child to his own devices. At least there are no perverts here. In class, Naruto could barely sit still for at least 5 minutes, constantly fidgeting, looking out the window, then at the clock, then at me. I, on the other hand, quite convincingly portrayed a completely frostbitten person, not reacting to conversations behind my back and answering my classmates' questions with laconic "pft" or "tch." By the end of the class, my vocabulary had expanded to include the new word "hn," and Uzumaki had almost worn a hole in his chair. He was practically flying to his dorm room, and I could barely keep up with him. Naruto's abode amazed me to the core. I thought that such a mess only happened in manga, when sloppy heroes couldn't be seen because of the mountains of garbage. But it turned out that such a dump was quite achievable in reality. Uzumaki had lived in this room for a little over 6 months since he entered the academy, but the entire floor was already covered in an even layer of garbage. Mostly, plastic cups from instant noodles. Having surveyed it all from the threshold, I turned to the boy and said with the most serious face, "Naruto, promise me that from now on you will always clean your own room." He, Naruto ruffled the hair on the back of his head with a stupid smile. I just kept forgetting to throw out the trash. But from today on, I promised to clean up. Uzumaki quickly gathered all his things, they all fit into one box, and headed for the exit. And clean up here? But Naruto remembered his promise and suddenly flared up with enthusiasm. I'll be right away. We dealt with cleaning up quickly, we just raked the trash into bags and took it out. Consider this our first mission. We just made the world a little cleaner. Yes. Naruto jumped up, throwing his hand up. And so my new life began. I felt like I had adopted a child. I made sure Naruto ate right and did his homework and answered hundreds of questions like why the grass was green and the sky was blue, read local fairy tales and legends at night. And at the same time, I tried to get used to my new body. I had to get used to even thinking about myself in the masculine gender, so as not to accidentally get caught. It didn't start working out right away, but gradually it seemed to be improving. The first week I was just getting used to the new world. By the end of it I finally pulled myself together and got down to training. The problem with laziness was solved radically as soon as I told Naruto that he would never be able to surpass me. He swore to prove me wrong and almost by force dragged me to the training ground near my house every day for training. Since Naruto didn't know a single technique, at first we only trained taijutsu and weapon throwing skills. At first it was hard for me to believe that I could fight, but Sasuke had already managed to learn several techniques, and after a couple of sparring sessions with Uzumaki I was surprised to realize that I could easily block any of his blows. I always won in fights, which Naruto initially sulked about, but then with extraordinary persistence began to learn everything I could show him. Gradually, the previous lack of confidence in my abilities passed, and I quickly regained the skill of throwing shurikens and kunais. And after a couple of days, I was surprised to note that it had become even better than before. Now I simply knew how and with what force to throw in order to hit the target center exactly. After another training session, when not a single kunai flew past the target, I suspected something, and tried to increase the flow of chakra to my eyes. My vision suddenly became clearer and more detailed. Now one fleeting glance was enough to count how many shurikens were sticking out of the target. Your eyes suddenly turned red, Naruto exclaimed excitedly, noticing that I had stopped training. This is a feature of our clan, the Sharingan. I finally managed to awaken it. For a moment I regretted that there was no mirror at hand. How many commas are there around the pupil? 1, Naruto said after taking a closer look. I had to roll my lip, otherwise I was already hoping that after such a shock, the higher powers could have given me 2 tomo. With the Sharingan activated, it was much easier to train. Now those incredible tricks of Itachi with hitting targets hidden behind obstacles no longer seemed completely impossible. But my joy quickly dried up. After 10 minutes of using even the weakest version of the Sharingan, it was as if sand had been poured into my eyes. I had to turn off the dojutsu and sit for a while, tightly closing my eyes, so that the itching would go away. Opening my eyes, I saw Naruto with a sad face examining the Konoha symbol folded from kunai stuck into the target. There were several more kunai sticking out nearby. It seemed that Uzumaki wanted to repeat my achievement, but he did not succeed at all. I can't do anything, no matter how much I train, he said, upset. Baka, I've been training almost every day since I was 4, and you only started recently and already want to surpass me? If you train hard, you'll be able to do it yourself one day. Ha! Then I'll definitely surpass you. Uzumaki instantly perked up and began collecting the scattered shurikens for another attempt. I feel like at this rate, I'll only be leaving here in a few hours. Listen, Naruto, there's a secret to always hitting the target. What? Some kind of cool technique? The child perked up. And what? So cool that you don't even need seals for it, just willpower. Look closely. I picked up one of the kunai and stood in front of the target. To hit, you need to feel how a thin invisible thread connects you and your target. You can't notice it, but it's there. And when you throw, you simply cannot miss, because the kunai slides along the thread and cannot jump off it. You don't even need to aim here, because the weapon is part of your hand. After all, when you point your finger somewhere, you don't aim, you just point, and it's exactly the same here. I threw the weapon, and it hit the target right in the center. Actually, I read about this method of teaching accuracy in some adventure book, where the hero was taught to shoot a revolver, and I didn't believe in its effectiveness at all. But with such motivation, the boy will be more interested in training. After all, this is a special, top secret technique. I get it. Naruto even jumped with joy. Well, hold on, Sasuke, I'll surpass you. Just in case, I moved away and sat down on one of the logs on the obstacle course, because usually when Uzumaki trained, sharp iron objects flew in all directions. My eyes still burned a little, and I massaged my eyelids for a while, hoping to get rid of the discomfort. Look, Sasuke. I took my hands away from my face and turned towards the targets. And the next moment, my mouth dropped open in shock. It was incredible. In the center of each of the targets, there was a kunai sticking out. Obviously showing off, Naruto threw the last one, and it stuck next to mine. I rubbed my eyes again just in case, but the picture did not change. Holy shit, I muttered in Russian for some reason. What? Cool, I said. This is the first time I've seen someone succeed in the technique on the first try. Now do you see how important it is not to give up? Yes. Naruto happily rushed to collect the scattered throwing iron. and I continued to stare at the targets. It was one of two things: either that nonsense I was talking about invisible threads really works, or I am a genius teacher. It was more pleasant to believe in the second option. The next day, Naruto amazed everyone during practical classes. Seeing everyone's amazement, Uzumaki declared that this was only the beginning, and soon he would become the coolest ninja in the world and, to boot, Hokage. On the first day after he moved in with me, I asked him not to spread the word that he was now living with me. And it seemed that rumors about the new place of residence had not spread yet, although I did not delude myself with the hope that no one would ever find out about it. At the academy, I tried to behave aloofly and did not communicate with anyone, even with Naruto. I warned him right away that I would behave like this, so he was not offended. In fact, I was just afraid that someone would notice how I talked to my peers too condescendingly, like an adult. After all, pretending to be a child in front of the naive Naruto and in front of experienced shinobi are two completely different things. After class, I approached Hinata. After all, she also owns dojutsu and probably knows how to get rid of the unpleasant consequences of its use. I hope she will tell me how to at least remove the burning sensation or train endurance. Hinata-chan, can I talk to you for a minute? The girl clearly did not expect that I could address her, but nodded and was embarrassed. She is very quiet in general. I couldn't even remember if I had heard her voice before. My Sharingan has recently awakened, and there is no one to tell me how to use it correctly. So I decided to ask you how to prevent my eyes from getting tired so quickly. Are there any exercises or anything? I can bring you a scroll tomorrow that describes eye exercises. I think they will work for the Sharingan too, the girl answered quietly. Thank you, Hinata-chan, you are really helping me out. Can I treat you to something at the cafe as a thank you? No. Hyuga blushed. I just want to help you, no need to thank me. After that, I went to the school Melanin with the same question. He couldn't tell me anything specifically about the Sharingan, but he gave me a method that ordinary shinobi use to develop their visual acuity, and added that it definitely wouldn't hurt. In the evening, I also rummaged through the clan library, which was located in the basement of the main estate. I also found something useful. The next day, adding the scroll I received from Hinata, I summarized the information. All three sources contained both general information and their own nuances. In addition, in my past life, I had poor eyesight since childhood, and the ophthalmologist also told me about eye exercises. Having summed it up, I made a training plan morning, afternoon, and evening. If I somehow manage to stick to it, then soon I will pump up my eyes so much that I will be able to lift weights with them. But I know myself too well. I simply do not have enough willpower to work out every day. With a heavy sigh, I dropped my head on the plan, and then my gaze fell on Naruto, who was enthusiastically coloring the second meter of the scroll with colored pencils. Now he has enough stubbornness and willpower for 10. Naruto! Come here, I have new cool training. Of course, Uzumaki immediately flared up with enthusiasm, but when he saw the list I had compiled, he immediately became bored. You just don't understand anything. Look! I put a book of local legends in front of him, open to the page about Rikudo. Sannin. Do you remember what I read to you about him? Eyes like his are called Rinnegan. So, before his death, the sage divided his power between his two sons. He gave his eyes to the eldest, and he later became the founder of the Uchiha clan, and the younger one got the Sennin's will, and he founded the Senju clan. But the clans were constantly fighting among themselves, and so gradually there were fewer and fewer people in them. Now only Tsunade remains alive from the Senju, and me and Itachi from the Uchiha. However, several of the Senju's closest relatives also survived the remnants of the Uzumaki clan. What? Is there such a clan, the Uzumaki? Yes. More precisely, there was. It was almost completely destroyed during the Shinobi World War along with the hidden Whirlpool village, where the Uzumaki lived. Some of them survived, but were scattered all over the world. By the way, if you meet a person with red hair, he is most likely one of them. The clan was also famous for its incredibly large amount of chakra and extraordinary lifespan. That's it. I downloaded the child. I noticed Naruto's fixed gaze and shook him by the shoulder. So that's why I told you all this. I continued, having gained his attention. You and I are the descendants of Rikudo Sennin. In my family, his eyes were passed down from generation to generation, in yours willpower. And this means that we can both get the Rinnegan and become as great a shinobi as the Sage of the Six Paths. And he didn't even lie much. Theoretically, the Sharingan can be developed into the Rinnegan, but only the Uchiha managed to do so Madara, and the second owner of the dojutsu was Nagato Uzumaki. So there is a chance. Tiny, barely noticeable, but somewhere in our genes sleeps incredible, almost divine power. And if it does not work out to awaken it, then as a consolation prize, excellent vision will remain. Naruto froze again. I had just started collecting scrolls and books from the table, when the boy suddenly jumped to his feet. Let's go! Where? I did not understand. To train. Let's do it tomorrow morning, I began, but Naruto almost forcibly dragged me outside and did not calm down until we did everything that was on my list. Even after that, he wanted to repeat it again, but I barely managed to convince him that excessive stress can damage your eyesight. Well, I could only be glad that the problem with the dojutsu was solved. I hope that now the second tome will appear in my possession earlier than the Canon 1 Sasuke, and from there it's not far to the third part, 5. The next day, when Naruto and I were returning from the academy, a shinobi in an ANBU uniform and a cat mask suddenly appeared right in front of us. The Hokage is waiting for you. And he disappeared in the most natural way. Naruto looked at me worriedly. Is it because I live with you? I don't know, I shrugged, but decided to myself that I would throw a tantrum and make a scandal there, but they wouldn't take Naruto away from me. But everything turned out not to be so bad. The Hokage simply decided to personally make sure that Uzumaki moved in with me voluntarily, and also to inquire about my plans. To take revenge on Itachi and restore the clan, I answered emotionlessly. Hiruzen talked to me for a while about the harm of hatred, and then let me go in peace. The Hokage is still a nice old man, even if he ordered to kill your entire family. I suddenly remembered. Gradually, life got back on track. The academy, training, homework. I had more free time, which I had absolutely nowhere to put. I've already read almost half of the clan library. Fortunately, there's very little information in the scrolls, let alone in a book. And finally, I came across a method for increasing the amount of chakra. It consisted of 2 parts: strengthening the spirit and strengthening the body. And if taijutsu helps with the body, then the spirit also needs to be trained with intellectual games, memory improvement, meditation. Sasuke knew how to meditate, but only at a basic level, that is, he could feel the chakra inside himself and speed it up or slow it down. But Naruto couldn't do all these tricks with chakra. He was the only one in our class who hadn't managed to feel it yet. He's too restless and active, and here you have to sit in one place for a long time and not even move. Looks like I'll have to use an old trick and pass off meditation as something incredible. Naruto! I have a new cool technique. First, I had to tell who the hermits are and why they're so cool. And then tell him that I found a description of their training in one book, and now we will do the same as they do. From the anime, I vaguely remembered how exactly Naruto trained under the guidance of the toads, but only the main idea was important to me. Since there were no sharp mountain peaks at hand, I had to make do with what I had: a board and a small cylindrical bar. It turned out to be something like a swing, on which you had to sit as long as possible. Sasuke's body had an excellent sense of balance, so I coped with this task easily. It took Naruto a little longer, but he also mastered it. Then it was supposed to start meditating, continuing to balance on the board, but Uzumaki had problems with this. However, I was sure that he would overcome them. I myself easily entered the desired state and was now studying what my chakra was. And then a pleasant surprise awaited me. It became almost 4 times larger, although there was a strong bias towards the spiritual component. However, this is not surprising. My mind is now different, and it cannot be compared with the consciousness of a 7-year-old child. That's where the good news ended. I still haven't managed to get into my inner world, but I feel like I need to visit it. These problems with my emotions, which sometimes disappear completely, sometimes cover me with the force of a tsunami, probably come from there. Perhaps if I see myself from the inside, I will be able to figure out what the problem is. Having returned to consciousness, I saw that Naruto had finally managed to enter meditation, and now he was surrounded by streams of chakra, so powerful that they were visible to the naked eye. Yeah, and I was still glad that I now have a lot of chakra, but compared to what Uzumaki has, mine is a drop in the ocean. However, energy, like money, can never be too much, so Naruto will increase the volume along with me and learn to control it too. No, after all, I am definitely a genius teacher. At the academy, they struggled with Naruto for 6 months, but they still didn't really teach him anything. And he's only been with me for a couple of weeks, and he already knows how to throw kunai perfectly, knows history quite well, which I often passed off as bedtime stories, and now he's learned to meditate. These lazy chunin who pose as teachers need to be kicked out of school. I can replace them all alone. In my past life, I couldn't even dream in a nightmare that I would ever train every day. In the morning, at lunchtime, and in the evening, and sometimes just during the day. Often I wanted to give up everything and sleep longer, or read books, or in the end just lie on the grass in the garden, but Naruto dragged me out to the training ground every time. And there, willy-nilly, I had to work on myself. Naruto was progressing very quickly, and I couldn't relax, so that he wouldn't overtake me. Meditations gradually got better and better, but if I was counting on a quick and noticeable increase in chakra, I had to roll my lip. However, I did not give up, and for several months I tried to get into my inner world. My emotions still seemed to be asleep, and all I usually managed to feel was only affection for Naruto and surprise, mostly from him. No, in general, it is quite convenient to live without emotions. Nothing bothers or irritates. Although it does not particularly please me either. In a state of complete calm, I did not want to do anything at all. But if I still forced myself, I could continue until complete exhaustion. Now there was almost no time left to study the library, but sometimes I managed to carve out a couple of hours for this. I still cherished the hope of finding the shadow clone technique. The Uchiha can copy any jutsu, and at least someone should have seen this brilliant invention of the second Hokage. But so far I have not come across anything. It's a shame, because clones could speed up training many times over. Naruto had also shown progress in meditation, at least he no longer glowed from the chakra thrown out when he tried to influence it at least a little. He learned to speed it up, but that was the end of our success. Neither he nor I had yet been able to perform one of the simplest techniques taught at the academy. It was extremely annoying. After all, I can create a huge fireball, but some useless illusory clone just doesn't work for me. Naruto and I still had very weak control, so much so that even before training with running through trees it was like walking to the moon. We had to be content with a simplified academic version, and buy a lot of balls made of special glass that began to glow under the influence of chakra. Now we constantly carried them around with us, trying to light them. Naruto even fell asleep with them sometimes. And finally, persistent training brought results. For the first time I managed to perform the illusory clone technique. Naruto, inspired by my example, was able to use a replacement and henge in just a day. Only he, as in canon, could not make illusory clones. His relationship with illusions was generally rather strange. Perhaps because he was a Jinchuriki, or maybe because of his character and willpower. He himself could not cast them, but Genjutsu had little effect on him either. Despite all his academic success, most of the academy's students continued to consider Naruto a loser or a joyful idiot, at best. The too noisy and restless Uzumaki constantly got into trouble or attracted the negative attention of teachers, for which the other children often teased him. And Naruto himself was too good-natured to gain respect by force, beating up the particularly witty ones. However, these ridicule did not touch him so much, because I told him every time that they were simply jealous of his abilities. Children often there are cruel and even not realize this. In general, Naruto was like a small puppy, restless, playful and friendly, who was always eager to pounce on someone to lick them as a greeting. I confess that having learned to do henge not only on myself, I often created dog ears and a tail for him without him noticing. Uzumaki later asked why I had such a strange face, but I couldn't tell him that I was just crushed with affection. The empty Uchiha quarter was gradually filled with new residents, because almost all the houses here were in good condition. And the rent was relatively inexpensive. And Konoha, although it was called a village, was still more like a small city, and there were plenty of residents dreaming of their own home. In addition, it was quite prestigious to live in a clan quarter, even if it was closer to the outskirts. And such a small drawback as the violent death of all the previous residents could be forgotten. Now, almost a year later, it was not scary to walk around the quarter in the evening. Lanterns were burning everywhere, people were walking, and even several shops were open. Only around the main mansion some houses were still empty, because they were the largest and most expensive, and there were no tenants for them. This suited me completely, as they say, fewer people, more oxygen. Only here and there were disadvantages to settling the quarter. Most people were hostile to Naruto. But since we usually walked together, no one dared to openly demonstrate this in my presence, and the frivolous Uzumaki easily ignored the hateful looks. Although there were exceptions. "Little brat, damn demon," we heard one voice behind us. Naruto tensed up and darkened, but continued to walk forward, and I, on the contrary, abruptly slowed down and turned to a woman of about 30, with an unpleasant, grumpy face, who said it. "What did you say?" "Well, repeat it." She immediately lost all her ardor. After all, my frozen face, especially in combination with the blood-red Sharingan, has a depressing effect on people. "I just wanted to say that the young master should choose his friends better, and not pick up all sorts of scum. I see that you are so bold that you dare not only to tell me what to do, but also to tease a demon. Maybe you will risk repeating it to his face? Or were you specially sent from the enemy village to provoke a new attack?" "I didn't. That's not what I meant." The woman backed away in fear and started to run away. I turned off the Sharingan and, taking the upset and a little scared Uzumaki by the hand, pulled him towards the house. "Don't worry about it, Naruto." She herself did not understand what she was saying. The world is full of idiots. And this saddens me, but I can't do anything about other people's stupidity. On the way to the estate, the boy was dejectedly silent, but at home he finally burst out, "She's not the first to call me that." I was often treated like that, as if I had done something bad, but I could never understand what exactly. I tried to be good, I tried so hard. But no matter what I did, everyone still hated me. And I still don't know why. Naruto, I ruffled his unruly blonde hair, and the boy, who was about to cry, only sniffled. "I can tell you why they call you a demon. But I don't think it will make you feel any better." "I still want to know." "Okay. But it's actually forbidden, and if you ever blab, even by accident, or give yourself away in any other way, I'll be punished. I don't know exactly how, but I don't think I'll get off easy." "Never. I'll never tell anyone, even under torture. In fact, I was counting on the fact that, due to my young age, they won't be too strict with me if they find out that I broke the law." "Then listen. You're called a demon because the nine-tailed bijou is sealed inside you. People like you are called Jinchuriki, and there are usually 9 of them, the number of demons. They are some of the most powerful shinobi in the world, so every hidden village tries to get them. Before you, your mother, Kushina, was a Jinchuriki Uzumaki. But almost 8 years ago, on the day you were born, your family was attacked. Your mother was weakened by childbirth, so the seal could not contain the 9 tails, and it broke free. The enemy who attacked you took control of it with his Sharingan and forced it to destroy Konoha. Then a lot of people died, but your father, the 4th Hokage, was able to stop him. He and your mother sealed the Kyuubi in you at the cost of their own lives. Maybe I shouldn't have told him all this right away? I should have given him the information gradually, but then it would have turned out like I was deceiving him. And Naruto would probably want to know about his parents." However, Uzumaki quickly got over the shock and asked something completely different from what I expected. "But that means I really am a demon. Then why are you so good to me? Because I'm bad?" "Baka!" I gave him a light flick. "You're Naruto Uzumaki. My best friend and the kindest person I've ever met." "Really?" "Of course." I grabbed Naruto with one hand and started rubbing the top of his head with the other. "Don't you dare doubt my best friend." "I won't anymore." The boy laughed with relief and started to playfully fight back. It's good that children have such a flexible psyche. Such news fell on him, and he's already recovered and is laughing again. Although I also had a real shock at one time, but I seem to have coped and even remembered how to smile, under Naruto's careful guidance.